Son Jesus Christ cared for the welfare of everyone, grant us the imagination and perseverance to create in this town a loving and just society for the family of man. We pray for all community leaders in this place, and we ask this evening that you bless this council and all the decisions that will be made affecting this area. May they work to the benefit of the people of this town in accordance with your will. We need your guidance in all we say and do. We ask this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Judy, for that. Good evening, councillors. When we address the mayor, please be standing to put your talk down. That's all I said tonight. And then I'll read out the instructions. Thank you, please.
I'm fine now, Mr. Mayor, thank you. All fixed and ready to go.
Well done, sir. Right, it's a statement to the public, and it's public meeting prior to the council meeting. Thank you for coming tonight to the public meeting. These are the meeting before full council meeting every month. Skegness residents can ask questions or make short statements on any matters related to Skegness that is not on the council agenda. For matters that are on the agenda, please wait for the public participation item that is part of the council meeting. When speaking, please state your name and the street where you live. The public meeting will finish at 7:15. Thank you. Going on to the council meeting, the mayor's instructions to the council. As I mentioned at the last council meeting, I need to manage these meetings to ensure we get through council business in a timely way. I remind you of our basic standing orders rule. Unless you have a motion on the agenda, you may only speak once for a maximum of 3 minutes on any matters, so ensure you get your point across first time. Do not repeat a point that has already been made. Once the proposer of a written motion has responded to any debate about their motion, no other councillor may speak on it except for a point of order. If you are proposing an amendment to a motion, make sure you are clear about the wording. Thank you. Sorry. Are there any questions to be asked from the public? Thank you.
I'm Mr. Bob Walker, with Wave. Question in a statement basically, is this council going to allow ALDs to lose the town's residents, retailers, hotels and guest houses approximately £3 million a year of revenue so they can stop maintaining the foreshore bowling greens? And basically we all know what happens when that happens. Next time it gets sold off, and that's the last Skegness season of the money.
Has anyone got any ask that question? Referring to the bowling green, I believe. I think it's the UK Bowling Federation or whatever it's called. As far as I know, that if they don't do something about it, we're going to lose it in the town, and they'll move on to probably Mr. Walker, have you got any reports on that? Or
basically, I know that Mike Carr, the chairman of the BBF, is having a meeting shortly with, I'm not sure it's the leader or the chairman of district council, to try and sort out about using the foreshore bowling greens. And I also have been in touch with them today to put them in touch with people that could possibly get them funding for to do whatever they need to do on that area.
Do you know the date when we're going to be get together?
No, he's waiting for the chair or the ELDC come back to him.
Thank you.
Sure, actually, it's Magneto. The meeting will be with Magneto.
No, it's definitely with the leader of ELDC.
Really?
Yeah.
I know last time when we had this, I was involved, very heavily involved with it. I met with the chairman, Magneto.
Well, that's what he told me this afternoon.
Okay, well, the major problem we've got is that the chief greenkeeper was finished about 10, 12 years ago, and they've never replaced him. All you've got is the guy who go out with the mower and mow, and they are in the greens are in bad way, very bad way. And they're just not up to the standards that are required for the Bowling Federation.
Is there any other? Sorry, is there any? Councillor.
Add to what Mr. Walker said. When we had the awards presentation a couple of weeks ago, I was there, in my capacity as chairman of the district council, and the gentleman referred to Mr. Carr, and that's his name, wasn't it? He did say he was concerned, the Federation was concerned about the state of the bowling greens, and there was a call that they should relocate, but he didn't want to do that because we've been here 68 years apparently in Skegness. And he was having a meeting with the leader of the district council, Councillor Craig Leyland. Hopefully that might get things moving in a positive direction. But if you confirm what Mr. Walker just said.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anybody else who wants to speak on the subject? Sorry, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Sorry.
Are you standing up?
Yeah, really quite Thank you. Basically, as a former mayor, and there's former mayors around here, it would be very sad to lose the Federation. I don't know about £3 million that they do bring in, but they do bring in other issues into the town. And yes, I bet they're interested as a member of the GMB, and I do represent the workers at the LDC. There are shortcomings with regards to staff and staffing at East London District Council. They have got rid of a lot of staff, as our town clerk has said before, and outsourced them. What staff they have got left, they can't cope, and it's simple as that. And it is a very, very sad affair. I don't want to see the bowls disappear under concrete mass pushed in onto our foreshores that we can't enjoy as a general public because we will be shut off. But we used to have area committees when we used to have the leader and the chief executive. Why can't we ask for that to happen again? Where we can ask these pertinent questions and get some answers. Thank you.
I agree with you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Tyler.
I could just answer the question about the 3 million. That was a survey done back when I was chairman of the Tenants Association, and the survey carried out throughout the town. It was 3.5 million lost in that 1 week. The championship bowl week is worth 3.5 million in revenue to the town. That is taking everything into consideration: B&Bs, hotels, flats, restaurants, everything. So that would be now near the 4 million.
Is there any more questions from the public? Mr. Byford.
Yeah, John Byes of Summersby Grove, Skegness. I was here approximately a year ago asking the same question or making a statement regarding toilets in Skegness, which is still an issue. I live on the southern end of town, and when East Lindsey decided in their wisdom to close the southern end toilets off and then move the main car parking where people now enter and exit what was my old ward in town, people are queuing up to park. They're driving 2, sometimes 3 hours to get into town. They park their car, and the first thing they do is ask where the toilets are. And it's approximately quarter of a mile. I've measured it, quarter of a mile. And when you get there, if you don't have a credit card on you can't go. And my end of the town now is becoming one giant toilet. It's not nice. For people that are walking their dogs to be confronted everywhere with baby wipes, toilet paper, socks, because they're taking socks off because they need to clean themselves, it is not good, and that's not how we should treat people that are coming on holiday to Skegness, that they can't go. And then they're confronted with the fact that they can't even pay to use the nearest toilet without having a credit card. That is not on. We have a yard that has replaced the toilets, that are sending out a workforce to Woodhall Spa, to Spilsby, to Coningsby, to maintain and open free toilets. Where's the equality in that? When, let's be honest, people that visit Woodhall Spa usually have a bit more money in their pocket. They're a different type of visitor. It's free, as other car park. But people which usually have a little bit less money in their pocket, again, I'm not knocking that, but they have to pay for everything. Where's the equality in that? And these people, the staff, are now they're in a yard that was once toilets that are sending out vans. I would like to know the cost of sending these staff vehicles, paying fuel. These are not electric, these are gas guzzling vehicles that are going out to places like Woodhall Spa to open and maintain toilets. There is a cost involved, and I just think it's disgraceful that we are treating holiday makers to this town when they are spending sometimes quite some time queuing up to get in, only to get out and find that there is nowhere to go and they're busting. Now, I've heard on the grapevine that they're even looking at closing some of the toilets in Skegness. Now, whether that's true or not, I know I don't know. I mean, that would be a bad thing for Skegness. But my issue is at the moment about the holiday makers coming into town, and particularly on the southern end, because this is not how we should be treating holiday makers. I mean, this year, there hasn't been as many as previous years. It's going down, and if we're not careful, our visitor numbers are going to keep falling.
Can I just respond to that? So I've got some information. I've got a meeting with the officer at East Lindsey who's responsible overall for toilets in Skegness, and there's some of the issues that I had previously raised with them. In respect of being able to pay by cash, I've been assured all the toilets in Skegness, if they aren't if cash isn't available to go in at the moment, they will be, because that is in response to a trial that they've done, and the public have overwhelmingly said that they want to go to pay by cash. Some by card, but overwhelmingly by cash. In terms of management of toilets, the toilets are managed by Danfo on behalf of East Lindsey. So there is contact, if there are any difficulties with the toilets, you can actually contact Danfo direct to get those sorted. So any opening or closing and things like that should be being done by Danfo, not East Lindsey District Council staff. In terms of any potential future closures, I know that was doing the rounds on Facebook a couple of months ago, and again that is something I have asked the question and I will be raising that again. They are doing a review, but my understanding is that review is something that they do every 3 to 4 years. In any case, they did it 4 years ago, and they will again, looking at the costs, the provision, maintenance and all of those sorts of things to try and ensure that there's best value, but I'm pushing to try and get an early lead on where that's going and what information might come out of that.
Is there any more before we go on? Because the time's run out. Is there thank you.
Barry Robinson, the close skegness. I got in touch with Carl this morning, sent him some really nasty pictures of another accident on the one-way system. Does this council not think something needs doing with the one-way system? There's 10 near misses a day, probably more. That's the only time I'm sat outside, I can count them. Had one this morning, took 2 posts out. It's coming from Butley's direction into Skeggy. It's took two of the metal posts out. Coming down there, it's turned around one way. Now, had that been in the daytime, we'd have probably lost some holiday makers as well. We either need red cameras there, or we need a traffic control system on the one-way system. Carl has seen the pictures. He'll probably let you know if councillors aren't aware of what they're like. It was pretty bad, wasn't it, Carl?
Thank you.
So, it's something that needs doing.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Do you want to answer that question?
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Say, as Barry said, he sent the photos this morning. I'm already sort of working on it. But I've got the day. I'll come back to him and say.
Thank you. Right then, we're going to move on to the normal meeting. So that's the public meeting that's finished now because we've reached the time of over 7:15 p.m. So we're going to move on to the Skegness Town Council meeting now. Item 1 on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting attached. You have a proposal for that? Second. Thank you. Okay then, moving on. Sorry, I'll go to the vote. Item 2 is to note the apologies received by the town clerk prior to the meeting.
We have apologies from Councillor D. Brooks, J. Brooks, Paxton, Staples, and we also have been notified that Councillor S. Kirk and Councillor Cunnington will be late.
We move on to item 3 to receive declarations of interest. Anybody else? No. So we've got 6, sorry.
Schedule of payments, can't we have?
Thank you.
Item 1.1, planning commission for the Front City site. 2 businesses, one next to it, one to it. It's application 21.9, similar to the same type of walk out.
Councillor Dennis? So we're all put it on that. Okay, can you get them?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, we move on to item 4, public participation. If the residents of Skegness are invited to speak on or any question about any item on the public agenda, a maximum of 3 minutes is allowed for any one speaker and not more than 15 minutes in total. Is there anyone? Councillor, sorry, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob Walker, Withdraw Way. It's regarding items 16, 17, 19 and 20. I always thought that this council had always said it was open and transparent, which because of the town clerk's idea of making verbal statements more and more on each council meeting, we the residents cannot ask questions or make comments, because like mushrooms, I'm sorry, will be kept in the dark.
Well, fortunately, when the information, so for instance, in relation to pound fine, a meeting was held today, so it wouldn't be possible for me to write a report in time for the agenda dispatch. And Similarly, I wish to update council with up-to-date information, not information that is perhaps 2 or 3 weeks old, on such important matters.
John back.
Yeah, I'd like to raise it's item 15. I've not seen the attached document, but as a user of the railway quite frequently, I use my most recent visit to the railway was on my way to Germany. I was going to Nottingham, and I went down to the railway station. I fortunately used my smartphone to buy a ticket, but many people down there hadn't, and they were forced into what I could only be described as a third-class queue. You know, it was like they were treated, I think, terribly. They had to get in a special line in a system that I could only describe that looked like a cattle market. They were forced into this line because they didn't buy a ticket, only to be told that if they wanted to travel, they could wait in this queue for an hour, and if there were spaces available, they could get on the train. Well, they couldn't buy a ticket because the ticket office is closed. And I don't think I've seen the ticket office open now for some time. But it's East Midlands Rail. They're going to abolish all these ticket stations and force everybody down the smartphone route. Well, there's a lot of people that actually don't they may have smartphones, but don't actually trust buying things online. And I think the more we read about the amount of internet fraud that's going on, there's less and less people that actually want to use it. I've even been caught out by it, and I thought I was au fait with the internet, and I've been stung, and I never thought I would get stung on the internet. But anyway, so these people were forced into what I would describe as a third-class queue in the hope that they could get on the train and they could buy the ticket on the train, but they could only get on if there were spaces available. This again is not how we should be treating people. They shouldn't be forced into queues. I mean, do you know what? I counted 10 staff there that day, 10, including the transport police. That shows that there's a problem. When you've got 10 staff, I thought some of them were volunteers, so I asked one, are you a volunteer? Oh no, I'm paid. Is everyone paid? Yeah, 10 paid staff. That's a lot of staff. Clearly there's a problem, and the staff are there for a reason, because they know it's a problem. The simple solution is to put more trains on, to put rolling stock on, and take these people back home. We shouldn't be forcing people to do everything online, because some people, even my mother that travels on public transport, doesn't use a smartphone. So I think we used to have, the late Jim Carpenter used to be, I'm sure I'm pronouncing this right, the CELTA member. I think it was CELTA. Who is the CELTA member now? Who is actually taking this issue forward? Because at the end of the day, the railway has been a key and fundamental part of this town. We're trying to get people out of their cars, reduce carbon footprint, and actually we're making the experience of travelling on the train worse than it's ever been. And not only that, there were people in that, what I describe as the third-class queue, that couldn't even sit down anywhere. There was no seating for them because they're forced into this cattle grid. Thank you.
Anyone wants to speak on that?
In the agenda item, not now.
Not now.
Well, at the time of the agenda, because that's a public comment, it is the agenda item.
Thank you. So is there any more questions from the public? Mr. Robertson.
Yeah, item 14 on the agenda. I mean, I haven't been for a while, so I don't know where this is going. How far in Skegness is this grass merging going to cover? Going down Lincoln Road just the other night, 19 cars parked on the grass. One's dug the grass out and put his own curbs in. Pavement slabs. That's got to be hindering our grass cutters as well. When are we going to see some action, Mr. Mayor, over this?
Well, I believe that it's going to be put forward to actually...
Mayor, it was discussed at a previous meeting the council may see as the Lincolnshire rep to that back to council, and in the agenda item there is a response. So we'll deal with it at that point.
Okay. Any more questions from the public? No. Okay, we move on to item 5. And item 5 is town announcement and correspondence. It's the Mayor's acknowledgement. I'd like the Town Clerk, Mr. Lana, to send a letter on behalf of the Skegness Town Council acknowledging the swift response in removing the travellers from Skegness Car Park on Drummond Road, just as I was preparing to travel to visit our twin town in Germany, Bad Gandenstein. That also brings me on my report on Bad Gandenstein as Skegness Mayor for this year, 2023. It was a privilege and honour to represent the Skegness Town Council last week and to be accompanied with the Skegness Swing Band at Gandenstein Garden Show. I was also surprised in meeting one of the Skegness Honourable Citizens, Mr. John Byford, who had been out on numerous occasions in setting up a seaside theme in the garden to advertise Skegness. He also has a book. It's called Wanderlusten, wandering about and enjoying yourself. And that's what I've got to say. Thank you. Right, go down to item 6. It's the schedule of payments for approval. And the list of payments. There's a list of payments and bank reconciliation attached. So if there's any questions about anything, we've got Councillor Anderson.
I should try and stand up to you. Right. Mr. Mayor, reading the accounts and scrutinising it, I'd just like to ask a question regarding the budget. The question that I am not going to ask is a question that I need to know. Is the cost to the council of employees a round figure of £40,000 a month? Is that true or is it false? Therefore, if it is, that's a total of £480,000 employee salaries per year, leaving the council less than £100,000 to spend on public services. Is that correct or incorrect?
Off the top, I haven't got the figures in front of me, the exact figures. So they use, you can take the monthly amount and multiply that by 12, that will approximate, but what you have to bear in mind is that there may be some additional payments or other expenses that will go with that. So, as I say, best if I can email you a response.
Can I? Can I just quickly respond to that, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I think in the budgeting round, in view of our precept, which is, I think it's about 560, 180.
No, it's close to, it's 700.
It's gone up to 700, so that approximately 200,000 for services that we perform.
Well, but there's income as well. So we've got over £150,000 worth of income. So I mean, the actual budget is more than that.
Yeah.
Because some is supported by income,
yeah.
And also the staff salaries is also supported.
I'm having to go with staff salaries.
The Kathy's.
We need staff to do the public services. I'm not having to go with staff. I'm just concerned about the budget level and the income offset by that.
I mean, that's something budget's going to be discussed at management in 2 weeks' time. figures will be brought to that, and there will be ample opportunity to discuss that. As with all these things, as we emphasise pretty much every meeting, if we get the questions before the meeting, then I'm able to answer those. But when you throw one at me, I haven't got the papers in front of me, so I don't want to give you false figures.
Thank you. Is there any more council to question over the payments? We've got a proposer and a seconder. We've got a proposer is our Mitchell to speak. Sorry, can we speak on this proposer? Sorry, second. All in favour?
We know Councillor Kirk is going to be late. He's not sure what time he's going to get here. He's seconded a motion on the he's asked me to stand in his place if he's not available. Thank you.
We're moving on to, everybody's back, yes. We're moving on to item 7, it's councillor's question from there. Oh, you know that. Have you got anyone to ask questions to this?
Question written, yeah. So, the questions on the agenda.
Yeah.
In front of everybody, which was submitted by Councillor Royal, and it's the fully equipped disabled toilet facility in the skegness of being registered with changingplacing.org at the time where people research this prior to out their day out and main research facilities. I mean, we did respond to Councillor Royal before the agenda went out, but she did put this back on the agenda. The Changing Place facility was registered on the Changing Places site from when the building was originally opened. And if you do a Google search, it's also the very first item that comes up if you look for Changing Places skegness. So I think that information is very well out there on the exec.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to reply to that?
I understood that maybe it might be under the town council instead of the public. Is it actually under the public? Or
well, if you simply do a Google search on the internet, it's the very first item that comes up and it tells you that it's in Skegness Town Gardens Pavilion. Yeah, it says that. It's very clear. We've on Google Maps, if you search on Google Maps, because of the limitations of Google Maps pinpointing, it only does it every so many tens of meters. It looked like it was in the centre of the gardens. We've asked them to move it, and now it's in the car park at the back. Those are the known 2 points. We've added, on our website, we've added what 3 words, which narrows it down to a metre square. But of course, anybody looking that way would need the what 3 words at to be able to find it. But it is very clear where it is.
There's no association with using that to be using the cafe. Nobody's being usage of it.
Absolutely not. No, it's open when the building is open, and anybody who needs that sort of facility can ask for a key. It is locked because of potential abuse of such a facility, so we keep it locked. But the key is available both from the cafe and from the office.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, would you like to say to the council?
I got an email from a lady not 2 days ago. She came in, there was a class in here, the building was open regarding the toilet. She actually works at the Disabled Children's Home. She's disabled herself, there's 2 of them. It came in the morning, parked in the car park for the day, had car park and Scarborough for the day. And she explained that they came into the cafe, these facilities, which they thought was fantastic. But then on the return, the building was open, they entered the building, they went to use the toilet on the way to the car because they had a very long journey home, and they was turned away and told they couldn't use it. So I know you said there wasn't any, it's just coincidentally that 2 days ago I got an email saying that they were actually turned away. A disabled couple, both of them disabled, that work in a disabled children's zone. So I just didn't know if you could find out why they were actually turned away when, after what you just said, they've got a right to use that when the building's open.
Again, it would be useful if those people approached us directly, rather than it being, something that could hold up the council meeting, because we would be able to deal with it straight away and find out the information and ask them questions and actually have a dialogue about it to find out who accused. Perhaps it's a member of staff, or temporary members, some staff who didn't understand the process. I don't know. But without having that dialogue with the person, it's very difficult for us to actually find out. Because we need to know who said it to them.
Okay, thank you.
I'll speak to them and they'll speak to you all.
Is there any more questions on item 7? Okay, then we have a proposer and a second on item 7.
Yeah, it's just a note.
It's just a note. Okay, so I'm going to move on to item 8 now. So questions, comments on the Lincolnshire Police Representative. There's none available to Steve. Like I said before, to Martin, if you can send a letter on our behalf to the police, that would get a bit more response from them attending. Okay. So we'll move on to item 9. It's a report from the council representatives to the outside bodies. There's none received on that one either. So we can go from 9 to 10 now. Have we got any report from the 10 item? Have we got any reports from the district and council? None received. So we can move on to item 11. And item 11 is a motion.
So,
that's A.
That's
So, proposed by Councillor Richard Cunnington. And we have to...
No, I would suggest giving it to Richard with Councillor Cunnington in order for him to propose it.
Yeah. Councillor Cunnington.
Yeah, motions are you've all read it. Now, it is what it is. There's nothing behind it. I've done a bit of research in the past regard, well, very, very recently regarding this. But if I just get to read out or the statement that I've got from East Lindsay, which will support part of what we're doing with this. It's a class which I got, I just never really put in the report. And then, fully happy. Just a bit for
did you want me to read this?
Yeah, just a bit for me,
So, good afternoon, Councillor. I will put a copy of the conveyance and any supporting reference. It might be worth actually if I just say a few words to put it into context. I spoke to Councillor Cunnington about the motion before today and said that the first action that the council needs to do before any of the subsequent actions is actually to find out whether ELDC are open to looking again at the transfer agreement, because it isn't covenants that as written, the headline issue here. It is actually a contractual agreement which has contractual terms in it, and unless that is sort of changed, then the covenants that originally came from the old Scarborough, are pretty much irrelevant because the contract is much wider than the original covenants were. So, following that, Councillor Cummington spoke to the senior officer responsible for property for the three councils, and he said, I would put a copy of the conveyance and any supporting reference to why the reservations in our contract have been placed. It's a carrying legal reason, I can obviously let you know. If the reservations are solely been placed by the district council, then I will be very happy to present any representation the town council has to the district council for consideration. Even if there are historic reservations around commercial activity, we can still work through those as two organisations to see whether there is a wider community benefit that can be derived from the asset. So leave it with me to review. And then he's asked that, depending on what happens in there, that I have an exchange of correspondence with you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? Councillor Hampton?
Yeah, I fully support this motion. I really do. It's something that I talked about when we first thought of moving here all those years ago. Must be about 8 or 9 years ago, that we could get some income generation through the door that would benefit our residents and how much they pay in their council tax service. And that's the way to go ahead, in my view, is to have events and use the facility out there and maximise it to what is a money income generator that can actually help our town's residents. I just want to emphasise though, when planning, Mr. Mayor, when planning,
Thank you.
no, I haven't finished, I saw you speaking.
Oh, right.
Yeah. When planning events, that we actually make sure that the gardens are looked after and reinstated to what they were before the event. And I know the town clerk and the deputy town clerk are not sure, but it's up to us. Excuse me. It's up to us to make sure that that is written in the policy and with fines if necessary, so that can happen, and it should not fall upon the council taxpayer to actually pay for that.
Thank you, Councillor. I apologise to Councillor O'Dare. O'Dare, because you was the second on this motion.
I would have reserved my right to speak until everybody else has finished.
So, proceedings, any other questions? Councillor Dunnett?
I was just going to ask a quick question, because it was proposed and we didn't allow the second to speak, but I think it's something that we all talk about many times on this table. So I think we should speed this up, go to the vote, because I think any councillor that wouldn't want this when we've mentioned it so many times around the room, so I think we could speed this motion up. Thank you.
Well, there's always one, isn't there? I mean, I've not mentioned it before. I think I've been rather surprised about how much time we spent at council talking about events, talking about the fallout from events, and so on. And I think, I don't think we should pursue this actually. I mean, whether we should pursue it in the future, I don't know, but I think we need to protect our green spaces. I think it should only be for community use. I think we lost the sports field next to the pier when the covenants were removed from that, and I think we should. I don't think we should do this personally, but I'm quite happy to be the only person who wants to do that.
I just want to set some expectations here, which is assuming that the initial proposal and the reason we are willing to open a dialogue about it, there would be an awful lot of work to explore the options set out. So I would see that as something that would probably take quite a number of months and might involve having to get legal advice, which would obviously be at added cost. Because it's not just about contracts and covenants, but it's also about legal powers, because it is a public open space. It's covered by certain pieces of legislation. I mean, there are two fairly recent 72 Act and the 1996 Miscellaneous Provisions Act, but there are other acts that date back almost back to Victorian times that are still in power. So we would have to go through all of those and make sure that council actually has the legal power to do what is set out in the motion. So I'm just setting expectations in terms of the time frame and the amount of work to push it forward.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Items on that. Councillor Kirk.
This council and previous councils have always struggled with some sort of direction and strategy. This is a very clear long-term business plan item. I don't think there's anybody in this chamber that doesn't appreciate the work and legalities of doing that. Yes, it's going to cost money, but I think the community benefit of allowing commercial activity on there would be massive. Just imagine a wood load, an ice skating ring or something like that. That's exactly the sort of thing that we need. If this council needs to be remembered for proactive and pushing things forward, then I 100% support this. I appreciate Councillor Collins' reservations. And there's another part of me that always thinks about, should a council be in competition against other organisations? But the fact is, that asset could have so many extra potential which would then spill out into the overall general economy. I think it's a great idea, and we should all get the idea.
Thank you. The final word from the proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fully behind this. Councillor Kirk there actually suggested that this would have been better to go through management committee into a business plan, which was sitting on my computer to do. But this has come forward, and I fully support it. And one of the reasons I support it, if you look at the actual motion itself, there is a part of a paragraph here where it says, I've just lost it. In addition, the council at its discretion can allow commercial activities to operate alongside other not-for-profit events. Now, what that actually means is when we have events out there for, I don't know, whatever they may be, as it stands at the moment, you can have an event out there which could last all day, and you're not allowed to have any victualling, any food. For instance, thinking back to when I was a last councillor here, every year the carnival used to have a day up here, and one of the main ways that they raised money was by having a burger and coffee van on there, and it was highly popular. And that was under the old covenants that are still in place, that went in place over 100 years ago. They're still in place. They haven't been removed. No matter what ELDC have put over it, they're still there. So in my view, my understanding is we still have to approach the Earl of Scarborough or his estate to ask that they be removed, and I'm certain that he wouldn't have any issue with that whatsoever. So I would ask that, given the amount of work, given the expense, we still look at this, because that out there should be a community asset that should be used to to its fullest extent, and surely that must have been one of the reasons why we took all this on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Come back here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, like I say, the motion's there, and it does give this council full control. And like Councillor Kirk said, when you want to go out there, we can address the problem. This council got full control because any event going on there is going to be chargeable, or any chargeable element would have to be seen by this council before it goes via the clerk. Because we all know that to take a long time to the process, so we'll see what event it is. Do we want it? And then you let the clerk have to deal with it. So we've still got full control of everything that goes on. So thank you all for the support.
Thank you there. So we'll take that to the vote then.
All those in favour?
All in favour? Thank you.
Quite simple, really.
Okay, carry. Anybody else? Thank you. Right, we're moving on to motion B now. Proposer is Councillor Mark Anderson.
I'll just quickly read it out. Councillor Anderson has received complaints from local residents who are tenants of platform housing. Tenants are complaining that they are being charged to service charges that they are not receiving, for example, cleaning and communal areas. Skegness Council calls upon platform housing to urgently investigate these complaints and issue a public statement after the investigation. Mr. Mayor, I have been working on this since July, and I have been in communication with my secretary and the town clerk, who've asked me to actually pull it back from the last town council meeting to give platform housing time, as well as our MP time to investigate. Fortunately, some of the tenants were due to come tonight, but their spokesman had a heart attack, and obviously he's in Pilgrim Hospital, but he did convey to me tonight they want me to raise this issue strongly because they believe they are being ripped off. I know, as the councillors here, myself and other councillors have family, relatives and friends in social housing in Skegness. And platform housing took over from another housing association, Eastern Shires, which I was a non-exec director, and Units Housing, which I was a non-exec director as well. We didn't charge service charges then, but when platform took it over, they introduced it. Now, the complaint is, in the block of flats down Lancaster Avenue and others in Skegness, there is a charge of £2.79 for cleaning of the communal by a contractor. This hasn't been happening. Not for a week, not for a month, it's years. So, why are we being charged money and getting no service? My family lives down Tarrant Way. She's a widow, and she's on a widow's pension. And we're talking many people that are in social housing aren't wealthy. They're there on very, very low wage or benefits. If this was a middle class issue or an affluent issue, it would hit the roof. But because it's vulnerable people and people at the bottom of the ladder, people aren't bothered, and I include our MP, who has been written to, Matt Walden has been written to, said Isabel, his PA, said that they would be in contact 2 weeks. He hasn't replied, and this was over a month ago, and we're back in Parliament now. I have raised this with the Shadow Housing Minister, and she is going to ask the important questions of why a housing association is charging its tenants money for services they are not doing. We need to rally around and support these people like we did on other occasions, support our residents. I think it's a disgusting, it's a ragamuffin kind of outfit that does this to the poor, vulnerable people like we saw in Victorian and Edwardian days. And it's still with us. We've also seen programmes on ITV News. There is a reporter on ITV News waiting to hear what this council is going to do, because it has been at the front of an ITV report and investigation.
Thank you, Councillor Collins.
I reserve my right to speak at
Thank you. Yeah, it's really important that this is brought to the forefront, and I 100% agree with Councillor Anderson with respect to these unscrupulous and downright legalised theft charges. I had a resident who's an employee of ours with a very similar situation. I had a look at the bill that was presented by Man Crest for a block of flats of 6, and that block of flats was being charged £8,600 to buildings insurance, which was nearly £2,000 a year. Who would pay that? And cleaning, that never happens. This is a plight across all of these kinds of services that needs dealing with 100%. Now, to my knowledge, there is legislation that if everybody gets together, they can do it themselves. But I'm not going to lie, it's hard. It's not, when you're dealing with those that are perhaps not averagely educated, no disrespect, doing that sort of thing, getting a collective consortium of those 6 people to have a group that has its own standing orders and various other things and its own bank account to be able to deal with these things, it's just not going to happen. It's not straightforward, it's not as easy as it should be. This happens in Skeg, and they are getting ripped off something chronic. £2 grand for just building insurance for a brand new building is just absolutely disgusting. But unless all 6 tenants, flat members, can get together and all agree that they're going to do all of their statutory requirements themselves, they will just get ripped off. So I'm absolutely in support of both the proposers and the seconders. It's not just one organisation, it's others, and anything that we can do to kind of raise awareness is important. Thank you.
Councillor Cunnington.
Yeah, I agree with this. But I would just like to say to Councillor Anderson, you are aware that your district councils have got contact with officers at East Lindsey who have direct contact with platform, and you've not approached me with it to actually take it through the district, follow the channel to see what help I can support you with, which I would have been the first thing. Just like I said before, we're there, we can walk around those offices and ask these questions or email the officers with those sorts of contacts.
Do you want me to answer that question now or later?
Not now.
Can I just, I did speak to, or correspond with Councillor Anderson and Councillor Collins prior to what's on the council. My concern is, I don't think this council is the best place to help. I've looked at the platform website and reviewed both their complaints process and the accounts. And there is a definite process that should be followed and escalated. So the tenant raises the matter themselves with the accounts department and the service department in the first instance, obviously preferably in writing so they've got the record there. If they don't give a satisfactory response within 21 days, then that can be escalated through the formal platform complaints process, which is set out on their website. And again, there should be a written copy of that complaint. If the complaint is not dealt with in the timescale set out by the platform policy for that particular type of complaint, They then have the option to raise the matter with the Housing Ombudsman. Now, the Housing Ombudsman, I'm quite happy to pass, I have passed the address to both councillors. They have the power to investigate, which we do not. Any contact from this council would need to be about a specific case. So we then need express written consent from the tenants to overcome GDPR issues. And we really need, copies of bills, correspondence, etc. from the tenants. But since we've got no power to investigate, I don't think that's a good use of our office's time. I think there's a process there that should be followed. And that would be the advice that we would give someone turning up at reception or ringing us direct by the phone. Without that specific reason, the council would just effectively be saying to the platform that unidentified tenants are complaining about service charges and we want them to investigate and issue a public statement. Well, I don't see how that's particularly going to help, because they're just going to rebuff that. I think going to the Ombudsman, if there is already that trail of correspondence from the tenants, raising it as an Ombudsman inquiry, they have teeth to make things happen. And as Councillor Cunnington has said, the District Council also has powers over housing in the district, and these were previously obviously easily or public properties were part of the East Lindsey portfolio previously, and they had a housing department. So I'm just concerned that council can approve it, but it actually isn't going to resolve anything for any of the tenants, and that specific action by the Ombudsman and perhaps the councillors helping them to write the letters and to the Ombudsman might actually get a better response.
So you're saying that go through normal procedures?
Well, I think what happens, there has to be through that normal procedure, because otherwise, if you don't follow that procedure, then platform will just go, we're not interested, or we'll not respond. If they're given an opportunity to respond and don't, then the route to the Housing Ombudsman, who's got real teeth, can then make things happen.
Right, Councillor.
Can I answer this question? Because I've done exactly what the town clerk said. I've been to the Housing Ombudsman. They haven't got full powers, only to take on individual cases. We're talking about 3,000 residents or tenants or our electorate here in Skegness that are in social housing. What we should be doing is actually backing the tenants, okay, by having the press here, having this video recording and saying to them, we're going to back you, we're going to support you. You voted us in, not to stand back and let this carry on happening through policies and everything else. I've been in touch with the platform. They don't even know about any of this. The tenants have written to platform. There are repairs. My own sister-in-law, a repair that she's been waiting for over 2 years to be done. And she's done everything that you were saying, and you're all saying with yours. It's just crazy. We should be helping vulnerable people.
Thank you. Right, moving on now to Councillor Finlay.
Yeah, I get the motion and I get your point, and I do think that as much as the town clerk has kindly explained the situation, I still think we represent everybody in Skegness. There's no two ways about it. If they've got a problem, if there is 3,000 dollars, they've got a problem, they come to us. If we don't do something, then where else do they go to? To a deaf ears platform? I don't know. So I personally think this is a good motion. Let's send it in. If they tear it up and put it in the bin, that's their choice. But at least we have done our job, representing our residents, to say, no, they're not treated right, we need to do something. So as much as I appreciate the town clerk's words, I still believe that we should write to them quite sternly, and if it sounds great, we will go to the ombudsman, we'll do every channel we can.
But that's exactly the point I'm making. The point that Councillor Anderson made, which is the ombudsman will only respond to specific queries. It needs those specific queries. So we need tenants' names, we need details, we need details of their bills, everything like that. But to do it collectively, all we're saying is that there are some tenants, we can't tell you who they are, who have got complaints about the service charges and the services that are being provided. But because we're not giving any details, there's then no point of escalation beyond that with platform
The motion is requesting they investigate. That's the purpose of the motion, that they investigate. So that's what it's about, which is exactly what you're saying.
Well, I'm not giving them the detail, that's what I'm saying. You need that detail to be able, specific detail, to be able to do that.
Okay, Councillor Dare.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask Councillor Anderson two things really? Short answers will be great. When you contacted Platform, what did they actually come back to you and say? And the second thing is, going on what Councillor Finlay has just said, I fully agree with him, the council should do something, whatever that something might be. So, if you have a lot of complaints, I don't know how many you've had, but if you've got a lot of complaints, surely you can't handle those on your own. So, could you not contact the ward councillors for the people, for those people, and give them the information so that we can contact them and perhaps help them out? They're just the two questions.
Could we have Councillor?
All right. I'll keep it fairly brief. I think I do accept some of the points that the clerk's made, but there's a motion on the floor, on the table. It's fairly simple, just saying, you know, this has been raised with us, we're not very happy about it. I think that they already know the concerns, to be honest, because it's been bubbling along for a while. And basically what we would have done here is given the issue publicity, shown our support. I think it's fairly simple, to be honest. I don't think we need to overcomplicate it as perhaps has been suggested.
Councillor Anderson to
questions have been raised to me, and I'm glad that Councillor Kirk has come in because he used to be a housing standards officer for East Lindsey when we first met many years ago. I have taken this to East Lindsey. I have taken this to East Lindsey. I'm asking you a question, please let me answer. I have taken this to East Lindsey, okay, spoken to the people in charge at East Lindsey. I'm not going to give their name in public, I've spoken to them, and they told me they cannot cope. They haven't got the officer time in housing standards to do the work. They have not got the time. And a lot of it has been outsourced to another organisation, a different branch of that East Lindsey District Council. So that's your answer. Regarding platform, okay, yes, they do know about this. The chief executive knows about it, and she's been tracking me on LinkedIn to see what I've been saying, because they are frightened that this is going public. I've given them months and months to answer. I'm still getting emails from them. I've got an officer coming down to inspect from platform the land. You've seen it. It's falling to pieces. That's wrong. It was put up in 2003. He asked me, where is it?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, the question I asked you was, have you spoken to Platform?
Yes.
And what did they say?
I'm telling you what they said. They don't know.
Fine.
The officers don't know. They're all
okay.
based
We'll take it to the vote as per motion written. All in favour? Any against? You again? Has anyone abstained? No, okay, we're all right. Okay, right, we'll move on to item 12. And it's management committee meeting minutes attached. Proposal for that and a second. Proposal? Yes, okay. Okay. All in favour? Item 13 is the planning committee meeting minutes attached.
Was it correct? I read the...
Sorry?
Mr. Mayor, was it correct, the planning committee meeting on the
Yes.
6th of May? It was?
Yeah. Okay then, have we got a proposer and a second? We've got a proposer. All in favour? Carried. Item 14, a response to the motions on the verge parking from Lincolnshire County Council. Attached. Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I'm very, very disappointed that the Lincolnshire County Council, in its report in the bundle, is saying they're not going to take it forward. And I think because they decide it's not important enough, but it's important to our residents, that they won't take it to or push it forward, which I think is absolutely appalling. If I was in the groups at, which there are groups, political groups, at the County Council, I would be pushing this for my group to make it happen. But it ain't happening. Like the promise that we were given about the A158 becoming the coastal highway. Now it's not. It's going to stop as it is because it's been pushed back.
Councillor Collins,
I'm sure Councillor Macy was very disappointed with the response, as indeed I was. Hopefully he's gone back to the officers and challenged them like we would, because they've made it quite clear that they haven't made very much clear actually. They've said it's highly unlikely that they would be prepared to do it if they even considered it, which they haven't done, because they don't know whether they do it or not. It's unlikely they would. They mentioned the limited resources, but they haven't said anything about how many resources would be required or what it might cost. They said they don't usually do it, but then, what sort of a business would go forward if they said, well, we don't really do things, so we're not going to do those. These have been adopted in places like Wolverhampton and Hatfield and other local authorities, and they have been successful as well. So I've no doubt he's challenged them on this.
Yeah, I'm struggling to say, over time we're looking at a number of ways that we can try and solve the problems we've already got started. I mean, we have sort of had that conversation with Paul before. So it's not a case of never ever, it's a case of which one bollards first, and they're going to be getting installed, we've had problems getting them around. But the feel at the moment in time that that's the first and the right approach immediately. Then what we're going to do is, if they don't work with bollards, we'll look at the next steps. So it's not something that's totally we're not moving forwards with. We're going to try it always first, because if you're going to go down the road of PROs, you could be talking 12 months, 2 years, so on with it. Then if you get anyone that is against it, it stops it dead, and then we'll have to go to the planning committee. So we're trying to come forward, look at ways of dealing with this. It was felt by the police, because this has been ongoing now for at least 12 to 18 months, that they felt that by putting bollards in there, that they could act better. The problem they have at the moment is, it is an offence to park like they are doing on there. The problem is, the offence is catching them doing it at the time. The moment they've left that car, they can't act. So there is a lot of problems that are there, but this isn't done. This is the first step, and I've been working on it for quite a while. And it's not something that's just going to make Council Mason. Council Collins wants to respond to that.
Thank you for that response. I mean, shame that so far they seem to be putting the bars in the wrong places. And so they sort of blocked off one end of the road, but not the other end. So you can still drive on it, so it's unfortunate. And not perhaps in the main area where the biggest problem is, but hopefully they'll sort that out.
Unfortunately, we're not on the bars doing it, so they haven't all been sorted. So there are another still to go in, that's been what the issue is, we just haven't had the stock to put in place. It's going to be at all ends, and it will try and prevent them going in. Because the feeling is, what they're actually doing is trying to pull in, for instance, into the council car park, and then they go straight into the footway. Because the cars are obviously already parked along there, so it wouldn't be on the grass verge per se in the case of Star happening and so on. But that's what we're trying to do, but it's just not possible.
Thank you. So we've got a response to be noted.
Sure.
We need a proposal. Have you got a proposal for this? Yeah.
What is the proposal? I think I would actually give them, come back to this in 5 months, see if anything has happened, and then pursue it from there. It's Councillor Collins' motion, but I think we need to keep an eye on this, because if we just let it go, it'll just go on and on and on, and just disappear. So that's my proposal.
Just a point of order, Mr. Mayor, just for the purpose of members of the public, it isn't a motion, it's a response.
Yes.
It's a response.
So said councillors could put in a motion in 5 months.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's the logic.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I was proposing now. We need to discuss it.
Yeah.
Hoping Councillor Mason will give us some information in the near future.
I'll second that it's noted.
Thank you.
All in favour?
Take it to the vote. Carried. Thank you. Right, item 15 is a response to a motion on a summer rail provision from the East Midlands Railway patch.
Well, I think this is, again, very disappointing. I mean, East Midlands Railways have had millions of, or are having millions of pounds of public funds to update the railway station in Skegness, although the idea is that they'll close the ticket office as soon as that's done. That's really sort of joyous thinking. So they've got all that public money, but they won't come and talk to the democratically elected public body that represents Skegness. And I think it'll be too late to talk next May, because by the time we get to next May, we'll pick the timetable for the summer. So I'd like to propose that we actually ask them to come and talk to us before then, and say we're very disappointed that they haven't taken the opportunities that we've offered them so far.
Short answer, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second Councillor Collins regarding what he just said. My short response on behalf of the townspeople that use them, and we heard Councillor Whitefoot, I actually use a railway, and it's going back to Victorian days. Then, I brought this up 2 years ago. I gave you a report, councillors around this table, previous councillors, about my experiences of going on Skegness trains when I had connections all the way through, and I was held up at the station and told, get on the bus, which I wouldn't miss my connections when I was on holiday getting to Scotland. What happens to people that haven't got smartphones, or they aren't, compliant with IT, as what's been said by Councillor Whitefoot? What happens to those vulnerable people? We talk about an equal society here, for God's sake, and it ain't happening, and we're just letting it happen. People are being discriminated. This is a private company, again, as what was in the previous motion that I've raised, that is ripping us off, taking public subsidies, filling their pockets, and not producing a good service, public service, for all of us, including including the public that use them. When we talk about climate change, and the young people in this town care about the environment and climate change, what happens? This private company is forcing it to go and use on the roads and cause more pollution. This is...
Mr. Mayor, it's the same old story, isn't it? All they're interested in is making a profit for themselves on the skegness. What they are doing, that's why they've got the train drivers on strike and everybody else on strike through it. Ticket offices closed, shareholders, and inclusion with this decadent government. That's where the money's going, not the public.
Clarity from Councillor Paul Collins for council response.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I propose that we write back and say we're very disappointed about to talk to us. We want to talk to them before next meeting, because by then they'll fix the sort of time to matter to meet with us again.
Right, Councillor Steve Kirk.
The original motion was about 20-hour company's timetable. They quite clearly responded that they were in the process of cascading trains, and we won't have all the trains on our line until the end of this year, which is why they're suggesting next year. So whilst we can bring them in before May of next year, people can complain about the atrocious service they're giving us, or we can bring them early next year and say, what do they do? I agree, I think May's too late. If the fleet don't come online, which is what they're suggesting, until December, surely by the end of February they'll know whether they've got the trains or not, and by then they will have planned their timetable. So I think we should be inviting them back January, February time. May's too late, but I can understand no point in inviting them back this year, because this year's timetable has already been set and they are using buses. So I support bringing them back, but I support beginning of next year when they've got all their trains. Because who knows, they may come up with another excuse for not putting trains on the skegness.
Point of order. Okay, in response, in response to Councillor Kirk, we were promised years and years ago that there was javelin trains running on that line. And what happened? We got the outdated old class running on that line.
I'm happy to go to the short
track. Yeah, I'm happy to second. Right, this is to vote to know that.
Sorry. There's two things here. Motion report, and I propose, and Councillor wants a second, we write back and say we want to speak to you in January or February, not May, because the summer started then already.
No, can I suggest February, January for project setting, and that may take a long time.
Let's say the council work in February then.
All in favour? We're going on to item 16 now. It's the town's funds for the Tower Gardens project. It's a verbal report from the town clerk.
So we had a meeting today, and so we over the summer have been working with the designers and quantum towards the final design that we implemented and to get those final feasibility costs. The next step would then be for the developer to do mini tenders for the little bits of work that are not directly done by themselves to ensure that the costs are competitive. Currently, the feasibility costs look to be over budget, and so unless some additional funds are forthcoming, we will have to cost engineer the design. So that means either cutting stuff out or reducing the quality of what it is to deliver the overall design of the overall project. So we will be taking advice from the designers and Lincolnshire Heritage, who are acting as the overseers of the fund, as to how this might be achieved. Obviously obviously, if that process takes quite a long time, there is the potential that it then could delay the construction stage beyond the 31st of March. So if it takes us a month to cost engineer it, then that month has got to go somewhere at the end of the programme. We're also ready to appoint the professional support that the framework requires. So within the framework, as non-expert clients, we have to have somebody who reviews the costs and who knows the marketplace and also signs off at the various work stages. So we'll be looking to appoint them very shortly. The council has already previously given permission under the services agreement for those contracts to be signed off. The full costed whole works will come back to the council once those costs are made. So if there's any questions, I can try and answer.
Any more questions? Got it. Councillor King. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sure. Go to Councillor Cunningham first.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I've just heard what the Bob said, and I personally feel, and I'd like to hopefully, under no circumstances do we reduce the quality of the work that is provided. At the end of the day, if you've got a lower grade footpath in there, what's been recommended? It's been recommended for a reason. Long lasting, longevity, for what it is, for what it's needed for that purpose. If we reduce that, we're not going to get what we've been promised, what we need, and it'll cost us far more in the future. So I would seriously go on the line with reduce the quantity of the work that we do, rather than quality.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew and Amy Finlay.
Just for the clerk really, whether we could clarify, we received an email the other day from the UK Prosperity Grassroots Grants. Looking through it, there's it's a bit brief in what you can and can't get. And I was thinking, is that something we could go down? Because in my terms of council over the last 4.5 years, I don't think we've really applied for as much as we could have possibly got. There's billions of pounds out there. I mean, this grassroots prosperity grants thing is £2.6 billion, it says in the level. Is that something we could look at? Because obviously it's a shortfall in something that relates to that email from that parish councils can apply for funds for which sound very similar to what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there are two things here. Firstly is, are there parts of the actual design that we might be able to quickly, because it needs to be quickly, get access to funds. So that's probably going to be looking at the smaller pots, because the larger pots tend to have quite an extended amount of time to get the money and to agree everything. We are doing that, so as we look through the list of all of the jobs in there, so it might be, for instance, that some specific elements can be ring-fenced and we could apply for a grant for that particular element. And there are a number of funds that we could potentially do that. Smaller pots, but might be ideal for those things. In terms of the larger funds, and maybe lottery funding, this is phase one, and the council is going to be faced with how does it afford the other phases of the project. And some of those are for pretty essential work, because for instance, the path work that's included in phase one is simply around those damaged areas around the pond. That's phase one. So that's not a huge amount of the overall area. It does address the worst areas, but it's not everything. So we need to be looking at whether or not we can then get further funding for what could be a substantial amount of money for relaying all of the paths, for example, other grants. Then there were other elements of the project which included the additional accessible play, etc. And again, there are certain grant funding in that. In terms of quality versus quantity, overall I agree with that statement, but it might not be that the quantity will deliver enough of the saving to actually allow us to move forward. And so during the conversations I was having today, it was about what impact would reduced quality on this particular thing have. And if it's aesthetic quality, then that might be something the council would want to consider. Whereas if it's quality that would cost more in terms of maintenance and how long it's going to last, then that might be something that you wouldn't want to do. So there is definitely going to be a need to cost engineer, and we will also have to take on board comments from the funders, because they have certain things that they need to achieve with the funding, and so we need to make sure we meet that. So it's quite a complex sort of set of conversations that will go on, and once we've had those conversations, I will then come back either to council or to management committee, whichever is the most timely meeting, in order to get your authorisation that is what the final contract will look like.
Councillor Steve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, very, very difficult, because I tend to agree entirely, Councillor Huntington, that if you are going down the road replacing quality with cheap, you replace it time and time and time and time again. So, value engineering is fine, but you can't look at it purely in what does it save off the project today. It's what will it add to the cost of the council in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time. So I would rather, when an approach to town park suggested we look at try and break things off and deliver less better than more badly. And yes, we're spending money out there. We are sat here now in an historical parks and gardens. So all the heritage money now comes through Arts Council. We've got an Arts Council, Skegness Arts Council designated area. So of course there's money there for us, because it's about accessibility, making heritage accessible to all. So there is money out there, definitely, but the town was quite right. Their time scales may not fit with ours, but I really think we need to isolate pots off, hold the limits off, and if we can't afford to deliver them, we deliver them next year or the year after, rather than making everything worse than it could possibly be.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, I think we've got questions to add other than to second Councillor Cunnington's sentiment. Seconding that.
Councillor Mark Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Totally agree with the proposal. I wonder where that comes up from us speaking. Any case, I totally agree with the proposal and second. We've seen it on our national headlines about our schools and hospitals and public buildings when quantity has gone according on the other route the other way around. And we see blown up concrete mixed in with air, and now it's all breaking up, and our public buildings and hospitals are all collapsing.
That's a slight exaggeration.
All our public buildings and hospitals are because half of them now have been inspected yet. You know that, and I know that. Well, we will see. Anyway, that's what happens when you go down that route.
So, this is just a verbal update, is that correct?
It's an update of where we are in the process, and we are getting close to that point where we need to freeze the design.
Can we go in the shop before the building? Sorry, can we shift on to this marching before the building collapses then?
We haven't checked it to see. Okay, we'll just move on to the next item number 17, and it's the Remembrance Parade meeting notes attached. So you've got them in front of you. There's a Zoom meeting and the first session. Any questions on it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to say, from a veteran's point of view, attendance and marches, the last 2 or 3 years have been exceptionally well organised compared to what went before, as they say. I'm really pleased to hear that the PA system is highly likely to be replaced, because the one that you up there is about much use as nothing, and that will improve the service itself outside no end. Yeah. Just one thing I'd like to bring forward, if possible, for the ears of those who are actually on this committee, and that is there any way that we can have an area in front of the church set aside for those people who are actually parading? The reason I ask that is that by the time everybody has already got down there, waiting for the parade, and the parade turns up, there's nowhere for them to go. You're right on the periphery. That's an easy word for me to say, the periphery of the proceedings. As veterans, as the scouts and all these people, it would be nicer if we could get a bit closer. And my last little point is there any chance we can go back to having a more, can't think of the word, military aspect to the actual parade itself? Because it's gone completely civilian, and I know the veterans grumble from the moment that they leave the Hillgoods till they get to the parade, because there's nobody calling the pace, there's nobody doing anything. And as a veteran, you like to pay your respects and be military. That's just your ears. If it could be done, that would be fantastic. If it can't, if we're going to remain as it is, then that's fine. But all of those things that I've said would really, in my view and the view of a lot of the veterans that attended, would improve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Finlay.
I do appreciate what you're saying, getting to over there, and I think it will do the world of good to get a better view of what's happening. You could attend one of the Royal British Legion meetings at Skegness. What you're saying has been discussed before, but because of how it is, it's a public space. You couldn't ask people, you'd have to man it, and that is one of the issues. It does take a lot of planning from the road closures to the parade itself, to the service around the church. Not an easy task. There's a lot of people in Skegness who sit on a keyboard and find fault with it. Organising it and pulling it off and executing it how it has been over the last few years. It's not an easy task. And I get what you're saying, but I think what you're saying would be valued at a Royal British Legion meeting as regards to the planning of it, and you would probably get a better understanding of it. If that's I don't mean that in a nasty way, I just think it would give you a better understanding of how much goes into it and how hard it is to...
I'm sure, having organised 4 military parades myself, I know exactly how difficult it is.
Well, then they'd probably appreciate you turning up to Shine to do it. Maybe.
Show that it wasn't meant as a criticism. It was meant as no more than it would be viewed as an improvement by a lot of people if those things could happen. If they can't happen, they can't happen, as I said. But if they could be considered, it would be great. I mean, we rope off other parts so that people can go and lay their beads and things, and to rope off an area which would keep people away out of it, to drop the rope so that people go in wouldn't take an awful lot of organising on the thought.
only when I speak.
True, so. Okay, then moving on to item 18. And it's the phone box consultation, and the documents are attached. Let's read it. Councillor Anderson.
I say no. Yes, most people have got smartphones and phones. They do have, but phones run out of battery sometimes, and phones break and drop out pockets and get lost. So there has to be, if you're a vulnerable person walking home at night and you are being tracked, and we've seen a lot of issues in our town. I can't call it about the violence that is ongoing, okay, around Chapel in skegness that we get to hear, but the police aren't here to report on the numbers. But there has to be somewhere that somebody can get some help, and it has to be a public phone, because that's the first point of call. 999 for 119 or whatever, okay, 111 to get a response for help. There isn't any. Where'd you go?
I believe there's only been 7 calls you've done this phone, that's why we're saying.
Well, again, it's a very much
yards down towards Lane. There is another telephone box, so it's not far in the vicinity.
Mr. Mayor, you're forgetting the point. The point is, we're talking about a private company taking advantage of the public, in my view. And the public need good public services for when they are in trouble. And if we get rid of everything, then you're talking about the vulnerable people that you and I know, vulnerable people, they have no protection.
It's from Eastern University, and the 3 options that the council had: object to the removal of the payphone, but provide appropriate evidence-based reasons, consider the adopted kiosk scheme minus the actual telephone, so it's basically just or offer no objection. Those are the only 3 options that are available to the council within the consultation process. So if council were minded to object to the reform, it would be necessary to provide some appropriate evidence-based reasoning.
Any objections on this?
I've just given my reasons, and hopefully the council will support them and vulnerable people.
I tend to agree with Councillor Anderson. Basically, the phone box in question is surrounded by elderly people, so I think it does need objection itself. I think it's warrants an objection from us, if nothing else. It's their choice what they do with it, but we object to it, I would imagine.
Okay. Councillor Dannett.
Just come back on Councillor Deputy Mayor, Councillor Finney's comment. It's surrounded by anonymous business of carros, nothing else.
That's right. They're out. It's just a caravan site. Just we'll go from councillors.
This council has to provide evidence. That's what they're saying. We haven't got the evidence, we've not paid to get the evidence and given the officer time. It could well be that these boxes get hundreds of users per week. We're just hypothesising and, without actually getting any sort of proof. So at this moment in time, I don't think this council is able.
It's been used 25 times a year.
So they say.
Yeah.
So
well, that's the evidence. The phone company.
I propose that we do not object, because whilst I appreciate its reduction in service, it's not free. People are paying for it. So for those 25 people that have used it, fine, they've got good value. But what about the millions of other customers that are ultimately paying not to use it?
Yeah.
So I would propose that we don't object to that removal.
I don't get that as a private company in a private facility that's making millions of pounds of profit. So I don't get that, the money's going to the shareholders. So I don't get that argument. What I'm saying is that if these private companies, we have the same debate with railways and water companies dumping sewage into our seas and everything else, okay? Why don't we just give everything to them so they can just rip us off?
We've got a proposal.
Well, I think there's two proposals at the moment. There's a proposal from Councillor Anderson that there's an objection, and there's a proposal from Councillor Kerr that there's no objection. That's how it sits in Council at the moment.
Councillor Steve Kerr.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Clark, the only data we have at all about his phone box is that he got used twice a month.
Effectively, yes. 25 times.
Right. If it's being used twice a month, obviously it's a need for it, is there? It's actually clutter on the street. Now, I'm sure anybody who's partially sighted or has mobility issues would welcome this clutter on our streets. There are clutters very badly as it is. I can't see why you can object on a vulnerable person might need it, or an elderly person might need it. Evidence suggests it would be 25 times. It could be the phone flat, and it could be a quite like those could be life-saving calls.
Yeah.
But we don't have the evidence to support that. So, if we could evidence the fact that it had been used to save 3 or 4 children from getting through difficulty or were lost or something like that, or to save one person's life or used to call an ambulance, then I'll say yes, definitely keep it. But we don't have that evidence, I'm afraid. Unless they're prepared to give the numbers that we dial from that phone as well, we have no evidence to support I do not an objection.
Right.
Well, I just said something that's very, very quickly. Council Time told us that the Rotary spent all day and raised a lot of money for defibrillators in the town. Why? To help vulnerable people. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to have a heart attack and need it. It's there as a facility. This is a facility for vulnerable people or people that are in trouble. Same process.
So we've got a proposal that keeps it and don't object to it. There's a two proposals.
Well, as our council proposals are, we only need, so roughly up to do nothing.
Object, provide the evidence.
Yeah.
Consider and adopt a kiosk, which means just frame the kiosk, the actual box without the actual telephone, or offer no objection.
Well, I think it should be offered no objection and put it on the end.
You've got to have a phone there.
My proposal is object, okay, but we don't have the evidence, but we are here to represent our residents, yes, and people, vulnerable people or people in trouble that would need a facility.
Way that we can find out what calls were made from that phone.
Right, GDPR, they'd never be able to release that information.
They wouldn't, because if they're saying...
It would be illegal for them to release the information.
Yeah.
Even if it was to a 999 number.
Well,
not to say where the phone call went, but could we see if it was to a 999 or 111 or fire gate to one of the services? Because if one of those calls was made to one of those numbers, that could have saved a life or something, and then that's the proof to keep it there. Because one life saved is that phone call.
In practical terms, the consultation ends on the 12th of September. So that's the amount of time that's available.
I'd just like to second Councillor Davenkirk's proposal that we don't object to this. Knowing the location and where it is, it's not in what I would class as a residential area, it's not like it's in the middle of Beacon Park. It's amongst the caravan sites and others down there. I think for that reason alone, I support that we do not object.
So, only human beings are in the caravan.
there's no second. What you need to do is to do if that's, the proposal came there first, but are you seconding it now? Yes. Right, okay.
What's the evidence?
So the first proposal is councillor Chair, the second one is Anderson. So we take councillor Anderson's proposal first to the vote.
And we object with no evidence.
So we're going to take councillor Anderson's proposal.
We're here to protect the residents and hold them in one fornication of our
All those in favour?
If you don't, well, that just shows it.
Those against that.
Those against it?
Okay, so that motion is fallen.
Yeah.
So now it goes to the second one, which is councillor Kurt's, which is not to object.
It says it does not object, who is proposing that. We've got a second.
No, that's all in favour.
All in favour. All in favour.
We took the amendment first.
Okay, it's carried.
Against.
Against?